Thank you, Affan. Bismillah. Because of a shortage of time, I would like to lead in the subject directly, overlooking what happened in the revolution period. The failure of political Islam in post-uprising era, or more correctly, preclusion of them from governing, resulted primarily in two polarized orientations. The first orientation is secularist tendency that is usually called New Islamism. Secularism in this sense doesn't mean the separation between Islam and the state. It rather wants to promote Islamic values in state and society, but aim to reach this goal by pursuing pluralist democratic ways in accord with fundamental human rights. Followers of this tendency rightly think that the failure of the political Islamism they experienced was the result of a kind of premature birth. Although they presumed to get power, this was an illusion, because other power apparatus such as security units, military, judiciary, bureaucratic establishment, big media organs, cultural and commercial hegemony were absolutely not in their hands. Therefore, a very complicated preparation is necessary for future. In order to overcome this difficult task, it seems plausible as one of the solutions to separate between Islamic Jama'ah and political party, because strict principles of the Jama'ah might be an obstacle to apply to flexible policies to get popular support. This might also prevent them from establishing strong partnership opportunities with secular political circles. The Jama'ah must continue to work for promoting a pious society. On the other hand, governing power may help the Jama'ah to get this objective. After all, the ultimate goal of an Islamic movement is not to keep a state seal, rather to create a pious society. The politics is not more than a tool to fulfill a social transformation towards this godly demand. If it is successful, it will be fine. If not, it wouldn't be matter. Dawah, anyhow, continues until the last day of the world. The first movement to declare this transition was Nahda in Tunisia that took place in 2016. Meanwhile, some officials of the Ikhwan expressed their intention to distinguish between Jama'ah activities and political operations. This hasn't occurred. A year after, Hamas announced its new charter by dropping the former article, showing it as the wing of the Ikhwan movement. 2017 declaration of Hamas can be understood as that a religious movement with a political aspiration intended to reduce its religious references as much as possible. Hamas thus abrogated its founding charter, on which one of the interpretations of Islam dominated and constricted the movement. It also meant that this concise document would direct the movement referring to only basic religious and national ideas without any interpretive attempt as far as possible. Of course, this trend carries some significant risks, one of which is becoming a part of the global hegemon system. Tarık Az-Zümer is among us now, Mr. Tarık. His uncle, Abud Az-Zümer, wrote an important booklet in prison, Al-Badil Salis Bayn al-Istibdad wal-Istislam, the third alternative way between oppression and surrender. Oppression over people, surrender to hegemon system. This is very difficult to balance. It is still an enigma how relation and cooperation between these separate religious and political movements will be. Does the Jama'ah shape the party, or party shape the Jama'ah? This ambiguity can bring about disappointments that may lead to a new searching of authentic way to struggle. This is just what extremist groups wait for. We also must wait to see the positive or negative consequences of this experience. Today is too early to judge. As for problematic relationship between political activity and religious preaching, da'wah, what can I say? The idea of comprehensiveness of Islam, or inseparable essence of Islam between deen and siyasa, is embedded in many Islamic movements. It became a collective identity. Because of this, it's very difficult to change organizational behavior and structure. First of all, the mindset needs to be changed. There is no sufficient intellectual and theoretical works explaining how we understand this issue. Another factor is difficulty of separating dawah and siyasi activities practically in almost a century-old movement such as in Ikhwan. Another factor is habits transmitted from generation to generation in such movements. Every single person, whatever his position is within the organization, even it is a scholarly position, engages in everyday politics. To change the habits is the most difficult task. The fourth factor is the risk of losing large membership to other movements, especially radical ones. This means the fast loss of power. Lastly, political Islamic movements have huge difficulties in post-revolution period. Some leaders are in jail, some in exile. Who decides this vital decision? My opinion is that disagreement and conflict are inevitable, and the problem is too big to be solved in a short time. The second orientation is extremist tendency that has been familiar to us for a long time. This trend will maintain to be an alternative for many. Actually, its frame of influence must be naturally limited. However, groups adhering to this tendency in spite of their inadequate capacities of mobility have a potency to grow, as we saw in the example of ISIS. Imperial powers continue to exploit such kind of formations by paying their way in order to use them as a tool to redesign the regions where they operate. They are always useful tools for many things, like the global promotion of xenophobia or Islamophobia. Sectarian conflicts always nurture these groups. As long as Shia-Sunni rivalry continues under different political and religious forms, such groups will certainly survive. The character of such groups is their tendency to be divided among themselves because of Takfiri ideology. But their differences are quite clear and lie on a spectrum ranging from moderation to ultra-extremism. There will always be people to give up their extremist method of struggle by admitting that the way they follow is not the way to reach goal in Islamic terms. They will always seek alternative positions between the two poles. Actually, there is another orientation, on the other hand. It is, of course, not right to assess that there is a complete failure of Ikhwan-type Islamism which merges da'wah with politics. It is true that they were not well prepared, well organized, and farsighted, but they were allowed nowhere to govern the state during a time for which we can fairly judge their success or failure. So dawa plus siyasa option, although it lost much of its reasonable grounds, will maintain to attract Islamists all over the world as it was before, because I think its legitimacy is still valid. Thank you.